So, Chief Minister, how does it feel to be halfway through your last term as Chief Minister?
It feels very good. It feels very good because I know that I've used the past 2 years exactly as I wanted to, which is to say, to do the things which I knew were the reason why I had to stay. And I still remember, Rose, it was you that interviewed me at the Macintosh Hall when we were midterm last time, during my third term. And I told you first, before I told anyone else, that I would be standing for election again as leader of the party. Although I had only wanted to win 3 elections, I took the view that I had to stay for a 4th term because we were in the middle of the Brexit negotiations, it hadn't finished, and because COVID had really gutted the last parliament of half of the time available. And I'm telling you again now that I'm very pleased that I'm not going to have to stand again to be Chief Minister of Gibraltar, because the things I had on my to-do list, the big, important, juicy things I had on my to-do things list are moving in the right direction. We're almost there with a treaty. And a lot of the other things which are key fundamental issues like housing, health, etc. are on the right track for delivery in the way that we would wish and expect.
We'll dip into some of those in a moment, but I just want to ask you, poll aside, where do you think your party is at the moment?
Well,
what kind of a 4th term has this been?
Well, let's be clear, poll irrelevant, because I don't think there's any poll that matters except the general election. I have to tell you, GBC have put us behind before, and we've gone on to win. GBC in 2003. Well, not in 2003. In 2003, GBC said that I was going to be the member of the GSLP Liberal slate that was not going to be elected. Not only was I elected, I was shortly to become the leader of the party and become Chief Minister thereafter. So you will forgive me for saying there is one poll that in the history of Gibraltar has really demonstrated that it is reliable. That was the Panorama poll. There is one poll that has demonstrated it's much less reliable, and that's the GBC poll. But what matters is that polls really are just an indication of things on a particular day.
We all know that, though.
And they may or may not be accurate even on that particular day. So what matters is different. What matters is where you're going, where you are taking the nation, and where the party is in the context of that journey, that national journey. And I think the party is in exactly where it needs to be. It needs to be leading on the very, very difficult issues. It needs to be fighting on the difficult issues. That's what you're in politics for. Whether you're fighting on the issues that the Principal Auditor's Report represents, whether you're fighting to achieve the ability to build those houses, which means reclaiming land, it means having the public finance available, or whether you're fighting to achieve that treaty in a shape that is acceptable. At the end of that period, which is the 4-year period, people make a judgment. Halfway through, it's impossible for people to be asked to make a judgment other than what would you do if the election were held tomorrow, which is the question you were asking. I'm very confident that everything is on track for people to see that at the end of a 4th term, the GSLP Liberals will represent a party that is committed to working people, a party that's committed to delivering for people, that is interested in the people of Gibraltar and defending the people of Gibraltar, always above all else, that will have a new leader, which will be a reinvigoration of the slate, a change in itself from within the party, able to take Gibraltar that further step in its development as a nation and take the Gibraltarians that further step in the development of the Gibraltarian as a people, with me watching from the sidelines. Perhaps you'll even ask me to come on election night to comment rather than to be an entertainer.
We'll accept it, thank you. Chief Minister, you and I, let's be honest. I'm sure every politician in Gibraltar looked at our poll results and wondered what position they were in who would be the most voted. And your situation is different this time. First time in many, many years that your party is potentially going to have more than one candidate stand for the leadership. And we know already Nigel Feetham has thrown his hat in the ring. The guess is that Gemma Arias Vasquez will as well. You've hinted that you think Gibraltar will have a female chief minister at some point, and maybe others, I don't know. I'm going to ask you bluntly, first of all, who would you like to be your successor?
Whoever the party chooses.
But you'll have your favourite.
Well, when the party has a choice before it, I will exercise my right to vote for one of the individuals that puts their name forward when the slate is open and when those names are put forward.
So you won't canvass for anyone in particular?
No, look, once the names are put forward, I'll make a decision about whether I want to canvass for one, whether I want to canvass for neither. That's not a decision I can make now.
How are you going to prevent infighting, and I don't mean physical fighting, but you know the type of thing that happens whenever there's a leadership contest.
No, I don't think it's about preventing any of that. It's about
But it
running
creates
that.
division, doesn't it?
Not necessarily if you run it in a way that is not about why I'm better than the other, but what I stand for and what I'm going to do. In other words, if you explain in the positive what it is that you stand for without saying, and she doesn't or he doesn't, yeah, that is a way of just setting out your stall. And I'm sure that we'll be able to do that. Look, there's a thing about the GSLP Liberal executive, and there's a thing about the GSLP Liberal government that is very different to other political parties. And you've got to understand that. When I sit around this table with my cabinet colleagues, they are all my friends. When I sit in the executive committee, even when I have arguments, I'm dealing with, in the GSLP, people who are my friends. The same is true of the Liberal Executive Committee. I know that is the case. I used to be on the Liberal Executive Committee. We're friends. We know that we want to go in a particular direction. At different times we say, look, I think I've got the qualities to do this. Gemma Arias Vasquez said before the general election, I've got the qualities and I've got the desire to be your Minister for Health. And I was like, Gemma, I want you to be my Minister for Business. No, but I want to do health because I had this issue with my son and I want to change the health service for the better. Nigel Feetham said, there's something I can do in insurance, something I can do in financial services. And I thought, I think there's something he can do in tax too. With John Cortes, it's obvious that there's something that he can do in the environment. There's obvious that something that he can do in education. With Patul Fila, of course she can do something in education, like the university, and also in housing. With Joe Bossino, of course it's economics. You've got all of those qualities. And when it comes to representing Gibraltar abroad, in tourism, dealing with young people, inspiring young people, Christian Santos. It's obvious. That's the GSLP part of the slate. I don't need to talk about Joseph. Everybody knows that he's good at anything he turns his hand to. And Leslie, who has been in the unions, etc., can do industrial relations, can do all the things that they do. This is about friends coming together and doing what we can do best. There's times for reshuffle, things that you can also do best, aside from the things that you are also doing. And that reshuffle will come. Of course, there's a chance that it might be a ministerial reshuffle in coming months. It could happen. Joseph and I could decide that we want that to happen. But there will definitely be one when I'm not the leader, because I'm reshuffling myself out of the leadership. And then the new leader of the GSLP will have to determine how he or she assigns portfolios. But it'll be about playing to people's qualities.
Chief Minister,
It's a big difference between us and the GSD. You can see that they have this internecine battle. If you asked me if there was anything about your poll that I took seriously, and I don't take polls seriously at all.
The GSD votes.
Well, no, the obvious, the reality of the civil war at the top of the GSD.
But why would you take those results seriously and not the ones that related to
No,
your
for a very simple reason. I don't take any of the results seriously, but that's what speaks to me, to the reality that I live every day in Parliament. You can see that there are loggerheads, Damon getting up, pretending to be leader, asking questions about everything as if he were the leader. Keith looking at him askance, thinking, I can't believe what this guy's doing. That's the reality that we all live. You see it. Every citizen can see it when we watch Parliament. That's what you can see. Damon has charisma. Keith has intellect. The problem is they don't have a person that has both.
Can I ask you about how much longer you're going to remain Chief Minister? Because we know that the AGM next year is potentially when you might step down. Is that when you are thinking of stepping down?
Well, you can ask me, but I'm not going to tell you. I know exactly the date when I'm going to be stepping down, and I think it's my obligation to tell first the chairman of the party, second the founder of the party, third the whole of the executive, and then my party activists. And you can come and report that meeting, and then you will know the day I'm leaving. And
could it potentially be before that AGM in 2026?
Well, the word potentially opens up a panoply of possibilities to which the only answer can be yes.
Okay, that's why it doesn't really mean anything, does it?
Not likely to be, but...
Okay. All right, let's move on. I want to ask about your achievements. Obviously, the number one achievement is the treaty, and we've focused a lot about the positives about the treaty. What I want to ask you is, was there a time when you thought, this is not going to happen?
Yes. Absolutely. Because that's the only way you can negotiate. If you're so committed to making it happen at any price, the other side have got you at a disadvantage. I knew that I might have to get up in front of the people of Gibraltar and say, they crossed the red line. We are not going to do this. And that's how we successfully negotiated this.
We've spoken a lot about the positives, but do you have any concerns about any aspect of the treaty?
Of course.
Once it's implemented?
Of course.
What can I ask you, what is your greatest concern?
So look, I've just come from La Linea, from having lunch with Juan Franco, who is a real ally and somebody who Gibraltar should see is not promoting anything about the international issue with Spain, is just promoting how our two cities can work together. And he is somebody who will say, like I say, the treaty is great, but everything that is great also brings with it some potential issues. And so the treaty will create a lot of expansion, but a lot of expansion means a lot of people wanting to come to Gibraltar. You've already seen we've had to apply a temporary emergency break on applications for citizenship. Why? Because if we have a lot of people wanting to come to Gibraltar, because we've done such a great job and the treaty actually produces such a great opportunity for people who reside in Gibraltar, we don't want to see our health system overrun. We don't want to see our education system overrun. 199 new inscriptions into our schools just in the last academic year. That's over and above the people who are registering each year because they're born in Gibraltar. This is 199 new pupils from people coming to live in Gibraltar. Elderly care services. If you have people who are very wealthy who come over from the United Kingdom because they decide they want to retire in Gibraltar, as Mr. Clinton said today, why should we not want to have them here? It's great for the property market. Yes, it's great for the property market. But you assume that they sell in the United Kingdom, a couple come to live in Gibraltar, they are able to buy in Gibraltar, one of them dies, the other's on their own, they get into their 80s, they can't look after each other. We have a very generous system of looking after the elderly. That person will take a place in elderly residential services, not having contributed PAYE or social insurance to the system, and will take it away from somebody who has been resident in Gibraltar, has contributed PAYE and social insurance. Those are the things that are potentially dangerous and we have to guard against.
You explained that very well in Parliament today,
Thank you.
but there was a question asked about the denomination of those 3,000 people who were retirees or whatever.
Yes,
what I want to ask
look, I was in Parliament and I was asked for that breakdown. And look, I'm very careful about the information I give Parliament. If it's not accurate, I won't give it. So I didn't have the breakdown, but I can tell you the vast majority are UK citizens resident in the United Kingdom wanting to move to Gibraltar.
Okay. What I want to ask you specifically is about inward investment. How much inward investment is coming in? Because you speak about the 3,000 people, but I don't know how much.
So that we wouldn't call that inward investment.
Well, then let's ask separately. How
No.
much inward investment is coming in?
So the way that you measure the inward investment is with the growth of the GDP. And if you look at how the GDP is growing, it's growing now again exponentially. There was a bit of a hiatus during COVID, but you won't see that until next year because, of course, you see the effect of that next year. You see how the companies are growing. The way that you measure that inward investment is the spending of companies, the spending on salaries, etc. That's only going on. Sorry?
Spending of government is also measured in the GDP.
Well, yes, but that's not the inward investment. And the spending of government, you can see that in the GDP, but you can ring fence it because you know to the penny what it is.
Okay.
So the balance is the inward investment and the activity of companies in Gibraltar, which you also got some measure of because you've got the tax take there. You can see who are new, you can see who are making the new contributions. So that's how you'll see it, and it's only going in one direction, it's only going up. This doesn't stop that because this is not about stopping business, as I've suggested is clear already in my statement today. Business is something that we are wanting to continue to attract. We're open for business, and business is flocking to Gibraltar in the same way as individuals are flocking to Gibraltar, but we have to be more careful about individuals who simply tell us as they come in, I can sustain myself on my own without your help. Well, we've got to check that, and we have to put new parameters to ensure that that is the case to protect our social welfare system.
Let's talk about money. And you've got a manifesto that still hasn't been completely delivered yet. You've got 2 years to go.
You wouldn't expect that.
Yeah,
we're only halfway.
2 years to go. I want to ask you, does Gibraltar have the money? Because we've seen a lot of tightening of belts, a lot of going up of costs, government costs. Does Gibraltar have the money to be able to deliver what you have, the capital projects and all the other projects that you have in your manifesto by the time of the next election?
We do, but I'm surprised that you said that we're tightening our belts. What we're doing is ensuring that the money that we spend goes to produce results which the public want. Now, if what we're doing is putting up costs in line with inflation, I mean, you often hear the unions rightly, and I support them in this, saying the cost of living has gone up by 10%, 15% in the past X years, and our salaries must go up. Okay, but in that case, shouldn't also government fees go up by that amount, because if they don't, government fees and the revenue that government is taking is going to be below the cost of living. And government also needs to live in the context of giving to those who provide public services the wages that they need to provide those public services. So, of course, the government is able to deliver against its manifesto commitments. We will always prioritize, and those that we prioritize are the ones that go first. We've also sought to work with private sector entities to deliver some of those projects, because there's no reason why the government has to be the driver of all of those projects. We want to see those projects become a reality. We don't necessarily want to own them. We want them to be available for the public in Gibraltar.
All right, so no cuts, but you are putting up prices in line with other price increases.
Like every government in the world, and as we're doing also with our cost base, which includes salaries, etc.
Housing. There was a hope. It wasn't a promise, but it was a hope that you would eliminate the housing list. The Minister for Housing said she would want to eliminate the housing list. Is that on target to be done, do you think?
Yes.
By 2027?
Yes, and it's one of the things that I've really said to myself is fundamental, and it's one of the key things that I want to deliver. I don't know that I'll be able to deliver the actual real estate completed, but the actual real estate almost completed and done, with everybody knowing where they're going and the list at close to no one waiting. Obviously, new people will come on, but it'll be in a different way. Yes, and perhaps also with a next stage ready to be started by the next GSLP Liberal government, ready to deliver for the next generation. Remember when we were elected in 2011, we said the reality is Gibraltar needs 200 new units a year, which the GSD had not been delivering. They delivered much less than 200 units a year in their 16 years. We are on track to have delivered more than 200 units a year, to catch up and to stay ahead and to be ready in our 5th term to deliver that also under a new leader.
Chief Minister, can I ask you about the McGrail inquiry report, which we're expecting, if rumours are correct, imminently? Have you received the report at all yet?
I haven't received the report, neither have I heard any rumour it's going to be delivered imminently.
Well,
I've heard
a rumour that it had already been delivered.
No, I've heard what the chairman has said, that he's hoping to deliver it as soon as he's able. I'm giving instructions to counsel for the government on aspects of that. So as far as the government is concerned, there are still live issues in that inquiry, but we haven't received it yet.
And can I ask you, how soon would you expect to publish the report once you've received it?
I can't tell you that, because there are criteria in the statute that require us to look at it in a particular way, and I'd have to take advice from government lawyers, the core participants' lawyers, on publication there.
I'm going to ask you a question, but if you don't want to answer it, it's up to you. But if you're not happy with parts of the report, will you take a motion to Parliament, as you have done with the Principal Auditor's report, calling for Parliament, or to set the record straight, or calling for Parliament to reject a part of the report?
Of course, look, if I have to, if there is anything in that report which the government or I feel strongly about, I have a right as a member of the Parliament to bring a motion in respect of any matter and debate it in the Parliament. Now, I may or may not have the support of the majority of the Parliament, but if I have the support of my government colleagues, then I would bring such a motion, and it would be a government motion. But you're asking, this is high speculation. I'm not, there's no reason for me to think that this is the case. You've asked me whether that possibility exists. Of course that possibility exists. Well, look, let's be very clear. The cradle of our democracy is not the Gibraltar Audit Office or the Garrison Library. The cradle of our democracy is the Parliament. That is where the government is able to speak, the opposition is able to speak, we're able to have a debate, and people are able to hear both sides of the argument. That is where a debate on issues which are live in our community must be had. We can also have one on Viewpoint, if you like, but definitely, it is absolutely right that we should also have one in the cradle of our democracy.
You've spoken in the past about how damaging the McGrail inquiry has been to Gibraltar's international reputation. Yeah. Do you think that the report will go some way in vindicating perhaps your position, or rectifying putting right some of the damage that has been done?
Well, I certainly hope so. First of all, because in the course of the evidence that has been given, none of this nonsense that we've had some of Mr. McGrail's representatives, most of them international, say about there being corruption in Gibraltar, none of that has come out in the evidence. There's been absolutely no question of the rule of law in Gibraltar being tainted in any way. We heard all of that. Unfortunately, not just from Mr. McGrail's international legal representatives, but also from the leader of the opposition, because the government had the temerity to pass a law in Gibraltar that was identical to the law in the United Kingdom. In fact, as has transpired, as the chairman himself has said, it hasn't impaired his ability to carry out the work of the inquiry or in any way stop the inquiry from looking at all the evidence that it needs to look at. So corruption affecting the rule of law in Gibraltar, none of that has been made out in any of the things that you've heard said in the Garrison Library. Quite the opposite. So already I feel a great sense of vindication, because things can be said before a case by people wanting to launch a media circus around a particular case. But when it comes down to the very careful, diligent analysis of things word by word, none of that has been made out.
Let's talk about the Principal Auditor's report. You've done 3 weeks of your opening statement, and you probably have more to continue.
But not 21 days. I'm only on day 7.
Day
it's
7.
It's just that it's taken at different dates. Different people are not available.
And that will continue, I think, on the 5th on Bonfire Night.
Yeah.
I wonder what's going to come out on that day. But I want to ask you, putting aside your criticisms about the report and where you consider it to have failed, do you think there could be more your government can do for greater public accountability and transparency to bring about more confidence?
Always, especially as the world is changing and people expect to see more things online. And we did a lot in 2011. The amount of information that you have online, accessible at your fingertips, is remarkable compared to the information that there was not online about the finances of Gibraltar in 2011. Not least the estimates book, which now is 100 pages longer than the other estimates book, which means you're getting even more detail than before. But look, I get it that people want more, right? And so I say, for goodness sake, look at where we went in 2011 and look at what I've done. I've given you so much more. And people say, but now we want more. And I say, well, okay. Look, I get it. In the digital age, people want more. Maybe there are different things that we can deliver in the digital age that we weren't delivering before, like putting the estimates book online. Maybe we should make it searchable in the future in a different way. The Principal Auditor's reports are online now. People are looking at all these things, reports and all. I make no complaint about that. Of course, I challenge some parts of it. There are also parts of the Principal Auditor's report, which I will talk about in Parliament when the time comes, which we accept are valid criticisms which need to be put right in areas which are within the jurisdiction and purview of a principal auditor and which are in this report, which have been lost by the scandalous parts of this report, which I'm also having to challenge. So I fully believe that as society changes, the amount of transparency that people expect changes. Let me give you an example. In the old days, you could watch the Formula cars go round, but you wouldn't hear the radios. Now you can hear the radios and you can hear the driver of each car talking to the paddock. And obviously your competition can hear when you are talking to your paddock. So they know you're going to change your tyres in the next lap. So they might change their tyres. That's because there's much more transparency. In rugby, you can now hear the referees deliberating on what it is that they're going to say. Maybe that'll come to football. Maybe there'll be that level of step change again in the context of government. We did it again in the context of the DPC. Remember the DPC before 2011? It was private. You didn't even know who was there. The minutes were not made public. Now it's public. You can address the DPC. You get the minutes. You can watch it online.
Is it recorded? I'm not sure because I haven't followed it for a while.
I
know that if you didn't catch it live, you couldn't go back and watch it.
Maybe it's not, but you can then get the minutes or whatever, yeah? Parliament is now live on every desktop and indeed on GBC, not just on radio, but you can watch it. So look, maybe there is a step change. I said something in the GBC interview many, many years ago, and I don't want to be like an old judge in England called Lord Denning who used to quote himself as approval for things.
But you're going to.
But I'm going to. I said, look, the time will come when I can no longer be an agent of change to change my own change. So I did things in 2011 and in 2015, 19 and 23. I made changes. I thought they were the right changes to make, right? The problem is the opposition have not been able to kick me out to come and make more changes, and the opposition represent the state which I had to change because the GSD with Damon Bossino in Parliament and Peter Caruana in Parliament next to him said, don't change the DPC law, keep it as it is. You're making a rod for your own back. So they stand for more secrecy, not more transparency. That's the difficulty that we have as a community.
Chief Minister, you've spoken about your priorities and you've said it's the treaty and you've said it's housing. I would imagine another priority is succession planning in your party. Is there another priority that I haven't mentioned?
Succession planning in my party is not my priority.
Isn't it?
No, because it's something that I think the party will settle, and with the party, I'm very relaxed about how that is going to work in an organic way, in the usual way. It is always the international issue: housing, health, education, employment. Employment, we're doing very well. We have 5 unemployed. Education, we're doing very well, but there's always room for employment.
Chief Minister, I heard you say that in Parliament today, 5 unemployed, but there are people on 0-hour contracts who aren't working. There are supply teachers who aren't working.
That's exactly my point. Look, supply teachers are usually very young teachers who are going to come into the formal cadre. There's very little we can do there, because if we have enough teachers in our complement, and we've expanded our complement almost every year since we've been elected, we can't just say whoever goes away to study to become a teacher, when you come back you have a job.
No, but then it's not 5
No.
unemployed.
But those individuals who are supply teachers are usually working, or they're working on some occasions or doing other jobs. So I get that. That's why I say to you, we're doing well, but there's room for improvement. And in education, qua education, forget the employment aspect of education, we're doing extraordinarily well. Remarkably well, but there's always room for improvement, because there's always some people who are falling between the cracks. And that's why now this is about refining the product and making it even better. And that's my priority, that when I leave, I've done my best to make those changes which deliver this Gibraltar, and I've refined those changes to make them even better. I'll give you an example. The fabric of the schools. We've done fantastic work in delivering the fabric of the schools. I am not satisfied that we are maintaining the new schools well enough. When I go and see my son at the comprehensives, I'm very disappointed to see how the maintenance level of the comprehensives is being dealt with, and I want to address those issues. Those are also on my to-do list for the period I have left.
When you do step down, will you walk away from politics completely, or would you perhaps be involved in some other way, either with the party or as a backbencher, or will you walk away completely?
So no, I'm very clear about what I'm going to do. First of all, if there is still life in the Parliament, it depends what that stage is, I will of course stay in the Parliament. I'm not going to cause a by-election. Second, look, the GSLP has given me everything, literally from birth. Because when I was born, Joe Bossino was elected to the Gibraltar Parliament. He was starting to fight for the things that mattered. The ACR were in government, hugely important. I'm not suggesting there was no contribution from the ACR. There was a huge contribution from the ACR into the Gibraltar in which I was born. But Joe Bossino was already fighting for the differences and changes he would bring in 1988. And from 1988 onwards, a lot of what Gibraltar has today is thanks to Joe Bossino and the GSLP. And who I am today, my Oxford University degree, my work as a lawyer in Gibraltar, my membership of the party, my leadership of the party, becoming Chief Minister, all of those things I owe to the GSLP and the people who make it up. I am never going to leave the GSLP. I'm going to fight, once I'm not an elected member, to have a seat in the executive committee of the GSLP. I'll be there for the GSLP, and I'll be there for a Chief Minister of Gibraltar who is not from the GSLP, should he ever or she ever need my help. I'll always be there for Gibraltar, but I'll also always be there for the GSLP. I'll be a Socialist Labour Party member until the day that I die, and I shall try and stay in that executive until the day that I die.
And at this midpoint, are you on track to achieve all the things, because this is going to be the end of four terms in government as Chief Minister, are you on track to achieve everything that you have wanted to achieve?
Just about. And you know what will happen? That one day, very soon, and I know what day it will be, I will go for the first time from being the boy who is likely to be the next Chief Minister, the man who's going to be the next Chief Minister, the next Chief Minister, and the Chief Minister, to being the guy who used to be Chief Minister. And that's my job done.
Before I let you go, I asked this question of Keith Azopardi, and I'd like to ask it of you as well. What is your message to the electorate?
Stick with the government, because the work that we're doing is difficult. I know sometimes it might piss you off. I know sometimes it might feel like we are doing things in a way that is contrary to your interests. We're not. We get all of the picture from where we are. Believe me, we're working hard for every single one of you. We care about every working Gibraltarian. We care about everyone who is in Gibraltar and wants to go to work. We continue to work as hard as we ever did, because we have that objective of making Gibraltar stronger than ever, delivering the Gibraltar that you need for yourself, for your family, and for your children. And in 2 years' time, as a result of the work that we're going to do, and we're going to deliver under my leadership and the next leadership of the GSLP Liberal Party, when the election comes, I will do what I've done in every single election. I won't tell you to vote for the GSLP Liberals. I'll tell you to look very carefully at the two manifestos, to look very carefully at what we've done, look very carefully at what we say we will do, look very carefully at what the other side is saying, and make the choice that you think is right for your family and you think is right for Gibraltar. I'm confident if you do that objectively and you give us the benefit of the doubt when things have appeared to be wrong but in the end turn out right, you'll vote for the next GSLP Liberal Chief Minister to be elected after the next general election.
Chief Minister, thank you very much.
Thank you.